about the lower part of the face.
So you should go to a physician to have this done, not these Botox parties that you hear about or
Well,
whatever.
I don't think, I'm not a big subscriber to Botox parties. I think cosmetic medicine should be done by people who are appropriately trained
Hmm.
and who do it in a professional medical setting.
It's painful.
Botox really isn't very painful. It's done with a very small needle, so it's like a little needle injection.
Almost like acupuncture, maybe?
Very similar, I
Mm-hmm.
think, yeah. And you're injecting small quantities of this material actually into or next to the muscle. And the effect is usually within a few days.
So do you go for several treatments, or?
Well, it's not permanent. So most people will get treated, for instance, and it's almost always, facial wrinkles. Most people will have an initial treatment and then will repeat that at least for the first year, about every 3 to 4 months. And oftentimes after that, you can stretch the treatments out with a lower dose to every 6 months. So, but it's not permanent, so it has to be redone.
Mm.
Like a lot of fillers. If you're filling things, adding volume to the face,
So it would be more for people that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, or?
the traditional group of people are what we'd refer to as middle age, from the older 30-something into the 60s.
Hmm.
That's
And you
really
have
the
to pay
biggest
for it. It's
market.
not covered by insurance and things
No, it
like
is
that,
not.
right? Right.
There are not very many. Some plastic cosmetic procedures, again for deformities or medically related problems,
Mm-hmm.
are covered by insurance. But no, appearance-changing procedures with cosmetic medicine, it's pretty much a cash business.
Hmm. Now, the next thing you mentioned, microdermabrasion.
Hmm.
Tell me what that is.
Well, it's a very simple technique. It's basically taking, again, it's a very old technique, starting with the Egyptian. It's taking anything from sandpaper to diamond-studded wands to a kind of a sandblasting uh, technique using alumina crystals to abrade and take off the very superficial layers of skin.
So it goes further than, say, I have a cleanser that I have from some cosmetics company that I use every night to wash
Hmm.
my face. So it's more than that.
Yes, it's mechanically taking off the outer layers of the skin, the most superficial layers. And when it does that, it smooths the skin. But also, if it's done aggressively enough and at the right intervals, it can stimulate the skin to lead to collagen production. Collagen being the major component in the skin that gives it firmness and suppleness. So if you, excuse me, if you do a microdermabrasion, say once a week or every 10 days to 2 weeks, for a series of 6, the data and the research shows that you can lead to permanent firming of the skin and permanent collagen production.
Hmm.
So it actually changes structure and function.
So no wonder that's is that a popular thing
It's
as
very
as
popular.
opposed to the Botox?
It's very, well, Botox, I think, right now is #1
Is
in
that
terms of popularity. Microdermabrasion is very simple. It's very safe. It's very easy to do. It's certainly lower cost than a lot of other procedures. It's less expensive than Botox and so
hmm
forth. And it can have a one-time positive effect. For instance, people look better that evening. Or it can have a long-term effect if it's done in series.
Hmm.
And it's very quick. And you come out and nobody knows that you had anything done. But they think you look better. And you think you look better.
Oh, okay. As long as you think you look better, then it probably makes you feel better too,
Right,
right? And then it takes us back to the beauty concept thing.
right.
And while we're on that, let's talk a little bit about that because some of the material that I looked up on the web talked about beauty and it talked about the Aristotle and living a beautiful life. And this woman, Alexander Stoddard, whom I had the privilege of meeting this past weekend in Washington when I was down there, has written about 25 books. She's a designer, and they have to do with beauty and tea ceremonies. She's an interior designer, and she really believes in living the life of beauty and the good life, living a beautiful life, dignifying our lives. And it's interesting because here at Tea with Marie, we focus on beauty and gentility and tranquility. And I believe that it's very important, especially today. If you look out into the world, not only is there a lot of ugliness and violence and anger, and I think that they're somewhat connected. I think that people need to have beauty in their lives in order to help them feel better, experience more pleasure, and maybe be a little more civilized. Maybe that could help the world today too.
I'm sure it
So we
could.
should talk a little bit about Aristotle's triangle and the beautiful and the true and the good, transforming our lives and not taking them for granted. And Aristotle actually says that we have an obligation to live as beautifully as humanly possible. What do you think about that?
I think that certainly fits with what I know from the ancient Greek perceptions of beauty. I mean, the Greeks were fascinated by the beauty thing, and it was, they tried to kind of maintain this ideal aesthetic. Beauty was important, and they said that beauty gave power. Another quote by Aristotle is that beauty is better than the strongest letter of recommendation, or is more powerful than the strongest letter of recommendation. And it's interesting. The Greeks felt very strongly about the power of beauty. For instance, the Olympic Games, which they of course started, were segregated in that you had to be attractive to compete in the Olympics. So if you didn't meet their attractiveness ideal, regardless of how fast you could run or how high you could jump, you were not allowed to compete in the Olympics. Because to them, the concept of attractiveness and beauty was very important. And if you look at Homer's Iliad, all the mention, Homer basically says that Helen's beauty was justification enough to launch 1,000 ships for the Trojan War.
They also had some mathematical things connected with it in terms of the attractiveness and the measurements, didn't they? And I was reading a little bit about that, and symmetry became important. That cross-cultural research has also found, wait a minute, I'm sorry, but we're talking about the Greeks and the Romans here, but their ideal was, here it says, the ideal Roman was defined as tall, muscular, long-legged, with a full head of thick hair, a high and wide forehead, a profile, a smaller mouth, and a strong jawline. And that those combination of factors would produce the grand look of handsome masculinity today. And then I read also that something about the mathematic concept. They even had some kind of a mathematical conception of the certain measurements that would define beauty in the human form and so forth. Here, also researchers have replicated results with computers, and they found a mathematical average of a series of faces is rated more favorably than individual faces, which I thought was kind of
There are characteristics that apparently are perceived as more attractive. And there's an interesting study that was done in 1993 by Kim Hall and some other anthropologists where they took a series of pictures of, I don't remember how many, but a series of pictures of individuals kind of from the chest, including the face. And they took them all around the world. They took them to Europe and North America, and they took them to primitive groups of people in Paraguay, Uruguay, Venezuela, different tribal groups. And they showed everybody these pictures, and they asked them to rank them, in their own language, in terms of attractiveness. The question being, is beauty really in the eye of the beholder? Is what you think is beautiful, is that the same thing that I think is beautiful?
Similar universal
Yeah, are the
concepts.
commonalities.
Yeah.
And what they found was extraordinary. It didn't matter which culture or what kind of background or where they were, people generally ranked the faces very much the same. So there's something common to the concept of attractiveness and beauty.
That's what this was saying in here too. I jumped the gun a little bit a few minutes ago, but the cross-cultural research, which you're referring to, and it said that they found a variety of commonalities in people's perception of beauty, such as large eyes and a clear complexion, for example, which is where you are. They're considered beautiful in both men and women in all cultures.
Right.
So we get back to the clear complexion, which is what you're involved with. That could be any culture.
Absolutely, and when people talk about wanting, improving their appearance, improving the quality of the skin leads to an increased perception of attractiveness.
And
Not
does that
even talking
lead
about
also
facial
to an
structure or anything.
increase in good health?
Well, I think it probably comes from the fact that healthy people have healthy-looking skin and clear, fresh skin. And the other thing there, there are a number of, and it really has more to do with symmetry and fresh, good-looking skin than it does with bony structure. There are a number of cultures throughout the world that have always been perceived as beautiful, and some of them don't have what we in North America would think would be a classic beautiful woman's face or a classic handsome man's face. And an example being the Polynesians have always thought to be very beautiful and very attractive, and they have very round faces. They don't have the kind of Northern European square face, but they have had, I don't know about today, but they've traditionally had beautiful skin, just stunning skin, a combination of, who knows, what they're eating and genetics and the environment.
Or something.
So skin quality is very important in terms
But
of...
now let's talk about shapes of figures, because the Greeks had the Greek ideal, and you look at Michelangelo's David and so on. But look at Renoir's paintings, and he had the nice filled out, chubby, kind of woman. In that time, that was considered beautiful. But today we have the skinny, almost emaciated, what's the anorexic type of woman is considered beautiful.
Yeah, I find that curious. I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from. I've never read anything about that or why that is.
And it's too bad. I know there's one company out there that makes soap, and they've been having advertisements of the regular average woman, and that bring people to realize that there's beauty in that too. And I love those advertisements. A lot of them are with elderly, not elderly, but elder women, and they're pro-aging campaign.
Yeah.
It's not anti-aging, but pro-aging. And I think that was great.
You know who's very good at that is the Body Shop. When you stop at different airports, the Body Shop does remarkable marketing, and they talk about the beauty of the natural process of aging. And they'll have older men and women in a lot of their marketing. Because it's pictures. I mean, if you see these pictures from different cultures of very aged men and women with lots of deep, wrinkles. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
And the character.
There's some beautiful, yeah.
So there's inner beauty and there's outer beauty.
Right.
And sometimes that inner beauty can be reflected by those wrinkles and the
There's
character.
a lot of living and experiences.
Or Mother Teresa. Or something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think there's different kinds of beauty, and I think that's the reason I'm doing this is because I think it's important that we have beauty in our lives. And when I say at the end of each show, don't forget to put beauty in your lives, there's different kinds of beauty. I'm not just talking about cosmetic beauty or things like that, but the inner beauty, the beauty of listening to somebody who maybe never has anyone listen to her, or the beauty of helping a friend who's having difficulty and maybe is lonely or something like that. There are so many ways that you can find beauty in your life. Music, different things. Oh, here we are already over the show. I didn't get a chance to talk about this book, Slow Down and Put More Beauty in Your Life, as Carl Honore says. But I think that would help dispel a lot of the ugliness and the anger and the violence, and if we don't put more beauty in our lives, then it's going to disappear unless we make the choice to do it. Anyway.
I agree completely.
So Chris, thank you so much for
Marie,
being on
thank
Tea
you.
with Marie and sharing some of your information and having our little discussion about beauty. And thank you also, and don't forget about putting beauty in your life. Put more beauty in your life every single day. I'm Marie Younkin-Waldman saying goodbye for now, and we'll see you next time.